Awesome. Okay. I'm also the host, so I have to let people in as they come in. This is a informal meeting of Ward 3 Vision and Cleveland Park Smart Growth. I'm Bob Ward. I'm the chair of Cleveland Park Smart Growth. I'm also on the steering committee for Ward 3 Vision, and I'm going to be joined by a few colleagues tonight to talk about the Wardman development, Carmel Partners proposal. We're going to sort of run through a bit of the where things stand, what the proposal looks like, some of the options that are out there that Carmel is not currently pursuing that we may want them to, take a better look at. We're going to look at sort of the process of where things go from here. And we're going to look at, some housing options if they were to choose something other than what they've had on the table, how that could benefit in terms of more housing, more affordable housing. And then we're also going to look at sort of the design of the project and how good urbanism could fit into this site in addition to adding housing. And I'm joined tonight by David Christille, who is the chair of Ward 3 Vision and a housing expert, and he'll be talking about some of the housing options. I'm joined by Meg McGuire of the Northwest Partners CDC, who will talk about their proposal with the Douglas Land Trust to work in more deeper affordability on this site if Carmel cooperates. And I'm joined by Ron Eichner, who is a member of the steering committee of Ward 3 Vision. He's an infill developer and been very active in the Chevy Chase area plan, small area plan. And we'll be talking about some of the design, design of the project where there's perhaps missed opportunities and how things could be reimagined. So I'm going to share my screen to get started and just run through this. We'll go through some talking from us for a bit. We'll open it up for questions, and then I'd like to engage hopefully we'll have some of the ANC commissioners here, talk about sort of next steps and calls to action. If there's, things that we can do as a community to speak up, be heard by Carmel, to perhaps get them to look at this proposal, an opportunity slightly differently and perhaps take a pause. All right. Let's share this. That's not what I want to show. All right, David, can you see my slides?
Yeah, I can see it.
Awesome. All right, I've gone through the agenda. So I'm just sort of stepping back. I think many people who are on this call are probably familiar with a bit of what's been going on with the Wardman site, and just wanted to refresh sort of memories to look back 8 years ago when JBG put their proposal in to add 4 residential buildings to the site where the Marriott is. They would replace the Marriott, and it was over 1.5 million square feet of residential space. It had a new roadway through. It had lots of underground parking, but it was entirely residential. There was a lot of controversy over this proposal. There was talk about delaying it for a small area plan, and ultimately the proposal was withdrawn and the property was sold. So that was sort of like context of what happened in the not so distant future, but not what's happening right now. And so the property was obviously sold in bankruptcy this past year. Carmel Partners bought it. They have a proposal of what they would like to do with this site, which I'll walk through in a few minutes. But even prior to that, I'd like to go through some of the land use changes that have occurred on the site. The Marriott site on the future land use map is a high density residential site. And during the last amendment process to the comprehensive plan, the council approved a restriping of this block with low density commercial to invite mixed use. So it would be dominantly residential, but could also have first floor retail. The site is also wholly contained within the Connecticut Avenue future planning analysis area. And what that means is, these planning areas exist on both Connecticut and Wisconsin avenues. And this was extended down to specifically include the Wardman site. And, any rezoning of these sites, particularly to take advantage of any changes that were allowed in the recent update to the comp plan. So that commercial striping, if you were to make this mixed use, would have to go through a planning process. And the council has provided in their budget a planning process for this area. Both Cleveland Park and Woodley Park will be starting a planning process as soon as March. The RFP is out, and I think responses are in. I think the Office of Planning is going to pick a consultant who will lead this process. So literally, we are on the doorstep of a planning process to envision what this both commercial corridor, but this massive site should look like, and what it should happen. And so I think, it talks about the public realm design. It talks about a streetscape design. It talks about maximizing development potential while taking into consideration the historic, properties in the area. Both the Cleveland Park, Woodley Park commercial areas are historic districts. This site has a historic landmark on it. Planning process would sort of navigate all of these things, gather community input, and put a plan together that a developer might have confidence in then executing. There's a variety of, and David, I think, is going to go into this in more detail, but, this Carmel owns the site. They have put forward a proposal that they are doing as a matter of right. They are not asking for any zoning relief or change. It does have to go through the Historic Preservation Review Board, which is the process that it is entered into right now. And that is because the historic landmark on the property and its project touch. And so HPRB will have to review the plans that they've put forward, but they're not asking for any map amendment. They're using the zoning that exists currently on the site. And there's no planning requirement to go forward with this project as they've presented it. They could upzone to high density because the future land use map allows for higher density than what's there right now. And it wasn't changed during the comp plan amendment, so there'd be no planning required for that. So that is an option open to them. They're leaving sort of density on the table sort of right now, given in the choice that they are making with this current proposal. They could change their zoning to allow for mixed use. So first floor retail, that type of thing. And that would require planning because that does take advantage of the change that was made in the comprehensive plan. They could also choose to go for a planned unit development, which is a planning process in and of itself. It could increase their zoning. All of these options, of course, would probably require the HPRB. So there are options out there. The one that they've chosen is the path of least resistance. It is as matter of right as you can get, with the exception of the historic preservation process. Sort of an overview of the site of what they're proposing. 2 towers that span the high density zone part of the property into the lower zone density of the property. They can still build 9 stories in this lower zoned area, which is, typically allows for 40-foot buildings. But as long as they stay within the height of the building to the lot lines, which is 90-foot building, they'd have to be 90 feet from all of the various lot lines. They can build a 9-story building here. And that's what they are doing. The lot occupancy of the site is going down from 47% to 23%. And so they're really leaving a lot of open space where there could be housing. Just another view, you can see the 90-foot setbacks so that allows them to build the height that they're trying to get Now look at it. I'm not sure if folks on the call are familiar with this. So I'm just going to go a little slowly through these pictures so you can sort of take it in. This is Woodley Road. This is Calvert Street. This is Connecticut Avenue. This is the landmark, the condominium towers of the old Wardman Tower. This is the view from Calvert Street. The Woodley, which is the existing apartment building that's on the property. And then a sort of a more zoomed out view from the Woodley side, which shows the vast expanse of lawns and gardens on this side. The historic gate towers are still there. There would be an entrance here. The underground parking, this is ramps down to the parking garage underground, would remain. There are parking entrance here on here on Calvert Street and here on 24th Street. But there's no connectivity. So you don't get through the whole project through any of these other entrances. What I'd like to do is pause and turn my screen over to, that's just sort of an overview of what's happening. And David will go through some of the details on the housing side of what those two towers envision. I'd like to allow Meg for you to share your screen and talk about your proposal for this site. Hold on just a second. Okay. You should be able to share your screen now. Great.
We've been working on the Wardman site for well over a year, since bankruptcy was first declared. And we started out with the Wardman strategy team, which includes people from around the city. Ward 3 Housing Justice grew out of all of our relationship with Empower DC. And more recently, we've started a community development corporation. And it is under that banner that we propose the current proposal to Carmel. The proposal focuses on this building, which is on Calvert Street. And I think you all know this one. This is where the entry to the garage is. The building is very sturdy. We have been through it, and it is a sturdy building. And our architectural advisor, the esteemed Phil Esikoff, who I believe is on this call, has determined that we could get probably 100+ units, including some larger family-sized units, out of this building. The proposal is to turn it over to the Douglas Community Land Trust, and together with the CDC, we would have a developer. We're still looking at the type of housing this would be, whether it would be rental or whether it might be a limited equity co-op. And depending on what we would decide there would be the best and the most, have the greatest long-term stability, we would then select an appropriate nonprofit developer to actually undertake the project. So we have this proposal on the table that Carmel would donate this piece, take a tax write-off, and then that with city financing to make up some of the difference between what they could write off and what it would cost them, we would then develop a financing package. I will say that Carmel has not said no to this, and we continue to try to figure out exactly what its full potential is. But we know that it's a sturdy building, or at least it seemed so when we walked through, and we had Phil, and we also had a member of the Douglas Land Trust board, and they could detect no structural indication just from our walkthrough that the building wasn't sturdy. So obviously there would be much more we would have to determine. But that's what we have on the table with them now. Let me say, in terms of the larger site. Oh, I'm getting, okay. In terms of the larger site, we're concerned that there's been no forum in which people can bring their issues to Carmel. It was very difficult to get Carmel to meet. We tried to do that since last July when they first won the auction. But finally, with Mary Chay's help, we did schedule a meeting. But there's been no forum for looking at issues related to demolition, which are extensive. What are the implications? What might be the carrying capacity issues on the site? And so we are asking the city to implement a large track review, which seems like it should have been done long before now, but it's not too late. And so we're asking for that. And we're also asking for the city to really look at the full potential of affordable housing within the proposed development, so that perhaps there could be some purchase of rights to some of the units. I think there are a variety of approaches that the city could take, even with the existing proposal. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Meg. I've awesome. Okay. Let's see. Now we're going to turn to David Christille, who's going to walk through some of the housing options. I'm going to just share my screen again. David, you seem to be unmuted.
I'm unmuted and I can see the screen. It's perfect, Bob. Thanks for being here. So I think, as Bob said, there's the matter of right option, and then there's the planning process that opens up a number of options. And I think if there's a couple takeaways from this chart, it's that, first is that with more housing units on the site, you get more affordable units. And if you look down the chart, particularly on the two columns that have IZ units and non-IZ affordable, you just look down the matter of right and go matter of right possible with maxing the existing density and so on. And if you get to the bottom, you can see the numbers increase as the options increase. The second takeaway to this, and it follows the increase in numbers, is that if you're starting at a base with the inclusionary zoning requirement at 8%, which is the minimum, you add on the proposal that Meg McGuire just went through. So you're sort of continuing to add units, and then you get into the options that Bob talked about, the map amendment, the planning options, and then you layer on the city's financing sources. And we'll talk about two of them tonight. You can actually get a significant amount of affordable units on this site. So I'll kind of walk back and start out from the beginning to go through this. So as Bob mentioned, the matter of right is 900 units. And if you do the math that even I can do, the inclusionary zoning requirement would be 8% of the units as affordable units. And so as it stands right now, the affordable unit count would be at 72. I've talked to some people at the Office of Planning, and I think Bob mentioned this earlier as well, is that under the existing zoning, they're not developing it to its full potential, and its full potential is approximately 1,200 units. And so if that were the case, if they actually did more, even as a matter of right, they could get to 96. Now, if you add the proposal that Meg talked about, which would be the 100 unit version, you've got the 96 inclusionary zoning units, or the 72, and then you add on the 100 units that would be non-IZ units. And again, these would be again, I think Meg, you mentioned they could be ownership units, or if it's in the context of community land trust, it could be, rental units, or it could be ownership units. So there's a mix there. If you get more interesting, and this is the map amendment going, essentially doubling the density, and these are theoretical numbers. And again, I think they'd have to go through a planning process to figure out how many units they could actually get on there. So then you've got the inclusionary zoning units going from 360 to 480 units. And then the non-affordable IZ would be, and I think in this case it'd be determined. You'd have to, but again, you could layer on city financing, whether it's a housing production trust fund, which is the city's loan fund for developers that do income restricted properties. The federal low-income housing tax credit program, which is another financing source that also subsidizes affordability. Then you get to the map amendment with the Meg McGuire's proposal, and you've got another additional 100 units there. And then the second to last option at the bottom is something called the HANTA, and that's the tax abatements for affordable housing in high needs areas. And this is a tax incentive program that the city just, I think the regulations are just up right now. In fact, applications are due. This says that a third of the development, a third of the units in this program have to be affordable at the 80% level in return for a tax break that's over a 40-year period. So as you can see there, you've got a range of the IZ units, which would be a requirement, and then you'd end up with about 300 to 800 units of non-IZ units that would be added to that. And the last example is what Bob mentioned, is if this actually went through a planning process to get to this maximum range of units, you'd get the inclusionary zoning units, which is 20%, but then you'd get the non-affordable, non-IZ affordable units, and this is anywhere from 360 to 480 units. So as you can see, as a matter of right, there's very few affordable units. But if they were to go through a combination of the proposal that Meg McGuire raised, they could increase their matter of right density. If they went through the planning process, that's going to start soon, they could get a lot more units, and working with the community and working with the city agencies, particularly the department, DHCD and the Housing Finance Department, they could get a lot of significant amount of affordable units that are income restricted. And I think just, roughly, the income range in these units would be anywhere from people earning $27,000 up to about $80,000 per year. So that's a pretty good mix of affordability would be a fairly significant development. So I think I'll stop there, and we can take questions after after Ron finishes. Thanks.
Thanks, David. So kick it over to you, Ron. And again, if you need me to point at anything, just let me know.
Okay. Thanks. So we understand, we at Ward 3 Vision, we understand that the affordability and the number of units that are built here is really the key important question. But when we take a look at this proposal, it's hard not to think about the layout that's being proposed also. And where we come down is we're looking very carefully at the idea of street connectivity. And street connectivity is something that different communities all across the country have been looking at, and you can see by these illustrations here, they look at it in a variety of different ways. But everybody seems to come to more or less the same conclusion that connectivity is one of the most effective tools in creating a socially and environmentally sustainable layout. The more connected a place is, the easier it is to walk, to literally just to get from one place to another in a connected grid or connected layout of streets. If you have choices that you don't have in the sort of traditional cul-de-sac kind of layout, which is what we I think are looking at here. A community can be strengthened with social connections that are encouraged by having not having a gated kind of community, but having entrances into a development that makes people feel welcome and included. And if a development connects the urban fabric and its context together, it has potential economic impact also. People can get from one side of a place to another, then retail shops and restaurants are more easily accessible and more visible to more people. The more connections there are through a development like this, the easier it is for people to get to metro and to buses, or to introduce buses or shuttle connections inside a development. All that can lead to a decrease in car usage, which is obviously greener and healthier for everyone. The other side of it is that without connections, streets, pathways through development, then it's hard to develop a public realm that's meaningful and gives a place identity and gives people a sense of belonging. Next, Bob. You can see here on the right some diagrams that reiterate what I was just saying. If you the big blob site that's there in the top left on the right side, if that's the site, it can be developed as a sort of cul-de-sac development, and as the caption says, it's sort of an introverted version of development. It doesn't connect with the neighborhood around it. It sits there separate. One way of making those connections in the lower left there is with pedestrian connections. If you can't do streets to extend streets into a development and connect it to the neighborhood, maybe you can make some pedestrian clear connections that are pedestrian only. Or in a sort of best of all worlds, if you can connect the development by running, extending the grid where there is none into the new development, it gives the opportunity to create different kinds of development sites within the larger parcel. On the left, you can see this an example in action from Pittsburgh, where the old Center Arena was demolished, and you can see the site, the big blob in the lower plan, but in the upper plan, streets that were existing were continued through to create development sites and to really integrate that big blob with the city. Next. So why do this? The goal is to make the neighborhood, the new development, and the surrounding neighborhood more walkable, greener and more walkable. And by walkability, what do we mean? Jeff Speck, who literally wrote the book on walkable cities, says you need to do 4 things. There needs to be a proper reason to walk, and that leads right to connectivity. If you create streets in development and they take you from one place, Woodley Avenue to Calvert Street or to the metro, there's a reason to walk. The walk has to be comfortable, which I'm sure it would be in this development with these great designers. And the walk has to be interesting, and it has to be safe and feel safe. All of those things can be done on this site, and in part can be done because there's density, because there's a lot of people who will be on the street, watching the street, keeping it safe, and providing customers for retail should that occur. Next. I found this when I was looking, doing a little work on this little piece, and I thought it was relevant. This is a picture of an underground parking garage, just like the underground parking garage that's on Woodley, operating the park night. Another way of connecting with the neighborhood is to program the spaces, to not have them be private and gated off and just serve as a verdant foreground to buildings, but invite the public in, and through connectivity and through programming and through use of the open spaces. We think that's very important also. And back to you, Bob. Oh, Bob, you added slides here, right, Bob?
I did. I just thought,
Yeah.
do you want to go through them, or?
I think we can go through them real fast. And the point of these slides is just that this is not all theoretical and diagrams. City Ridge up on Wisconsin Avenue, when they did their design of their project, they did some of that. They introduced streets connecting Wisconsin Avenue into the development, and that's under construction now. So it remains to be seen just how successful it is, but they're incorporating some of these ideas of connecting to the neighborhood into their plan.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
mean,
Bob, why don't you just run through these?
yeah, I mean, we just took a tour of the site. It's going to come online later this year. But there's a street grid pattern within the site. There's accessibility from Wisconsin Avenue. There's also pedestrian accessibility from the McLean Gardens side. It frankly could use more connectivity to the Upton Street side, but it is a site that has they created the historic landmark of the old Fannie Mae building. They're going to have a public green that's programmed, but it's going to be mixed use and hopefully vibrant, right? So this is the interior. You've got restaurants, you've got gym, you've got grocery store, you've got apartments, and there's, you know, the Wegmans is going to be the grocery store there. It's going to have street life. Is it the most ideal urban setting? No, because it's set back in. But there's interest there, and there's vitality that's going to be there, and it's going to serve not only the people who live there, but the people who live around there. So all the residents of McLean Gardens can walk to this site. People who live in southern Tedlingtown can walk to this site. So anyhow, there's a lot going on. So I think we should pause there, and before we get to sort of like what our next steps and sort of call to action are. Maybe open the floor to questions about what's been proposed, and sort of, you know, your thoughts. Do you think Carmel's plan is a good one? Do you think, you know, it could be better, and in what ways? So I think if we can do this for like maybe 10, 15, maybe 15 minutes, and then we'll go to a call to action. So if you could raise your hand in the, how do we do that?
Bob, I would just add before we move on that part of the reason why we're focused on this is a big site, and these are a lot of units. If there's 1,000 or 1,200 or some number of units like that, that's a whole neighborhood worth of people, and designing the environment to take advantage of that density and to take advantage of the opportunity to enhance the existing neighborhood, we think is really important.
And I would just say last thing, I mean, you know, the idea of 900 units coming into Woodley Park, which is one of the few neighborhoods in this area that doesn't have a grocery store, almost guarantees that people are going to be taking their cars from these 900 units and going to the grocery store. Are there grocery stores that are walkable? Yeah, I think to kind of stretch the bounds of walkability. I mean, further into Adams Morgan, you can walk up to Cleveland Park. It's a hike for, what would be awesome is if there was a grocery store here, not only for the residents of here, but for the residents right around there that could walk to the grocery store. And, how many car trips could you save by having some first floor retail? So anyhow, that's my soapbox. Glenn, I'm gonna recognize you. I don't, here we
And
go.
it looks like I'm allowed to just unmute myself. So that's pretty cool.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Glenn Kellogg. Full disclosure, behind these windows is the site in question. That I live right now at the Woodley and right in front of the site. So I want to let everybody know that yes, I do have a personal interest in this at the moment, even though I'm looking to buy something elsewhere. But I'm deeply, I have a deep personal interest in this project, but I'm also an urbanist. My career is in urbanism and in working in urban economics for development. And I will say, look, if there was an opportunity to get a grocery store on this site, like right at my doorstep, I think that would be amazing. As a development consultant, I'm going to say that putting retail on this site is really difficult. Especially at this moment in history, that when you look at our retail centers right now, it's pretty bleak. I think it's difficult to ask any developer to do retail at the moment, let alone not on a retail corridor, set off from a retail corridor. The only way anyone would ever finance that is if they had a highly credited tenant who was already signed to do that. If they could get Whole Foods in there, that would be fantastic. I think it'd be great, but I think forcing the developer to do it it would be difficult. Can't hurt to ask, but I don't think that that's something that would. I think this can be a good project without retail. In fact, I got to say, taking a look at the plans, I was not that offended. I feel like it could be better by having more units. I'd like to see more neighbors here. I'd especially like to see more affordable units. And I think that's the real place to push on this. I think that this plan is not a bad one. I don't think that it would be advantageous for this or either of these organizations to go in a combative way about this. That I think that the plan is not bad. There are places to improve. Like you said, I think connectivity on this would be great. That this is a really large block, and being able to have street cut throughs or some kind of, even if they're private streets, have access through would be advantageous. I also think that they are underbuilding the site, and seeing if there's a way to get more, encouraging them to push the density, especially where it means getting more affordable units. I think that's a positive step. I think that asking a developer to do anything that is not matter of right, asking them to go through an amendment process, you can ask them, but I don't think you should expect that they would be very excited about that process. I think those are my thoughts about it. Thanks.
I'd like to say something, Bob, if that's okay.
Hold on a second. Greg, there's a couple other hands up. So Mark Spiegel, I think you had your hand up next. So we're going to ask you to unmute.
Mute. Okay, there. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'll be short because I have not seen the plans. I'm really fascinated that to find this group talking about this, because I think it's very important. I did have one question. You had this this slide up about saying it was an underground parking lot, and it seemed, at least on my screen, it was a big field where people were picnicking, and there was a big structure. Where are you suggesting an underground parking lot for Woodley Park?
It's already there.
It's already there?
It's the hotel's parking lot. It's right here.
Oh, I see. And that would be open to the public now.
No,
No?
I don't
No.
think so.
Well,
Not,
it-
I don't think it's supposed to be open to the public, but it's how you treat what's on top, who you welcome in, who can use it, what happens there. That's the issue.
Oh, okay.
Incidentally,
So this
if I-
is Woodley, and here's the ramp that goes down to the underground parking lot, but it existing. I think they're going to keep that there.
I see. I see. So that would be for the people living in these communities. Yes?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That sounds reasonable.
Okay.
right now, although it's not a public park, that park is used all day by the Montessori school that's adjacent to it. So it's kind of nice that there's kids playing there pretty much all day.
Bob, would you
Right.
like me to help you mute and
Yeah.
unmute people just so we?
Yeah, so Greg and then Soraya.
Thanks, Bob. I for the life of me can't find my raise my hand button, so I'd speak up. So just a few comments. I live across the street from the property. A few observations and then maybe a question about maybe it's related to matter of right development, since I'm not an expert there. But a few observations. 900 units, all needing cars to go shopping in an area that is already congested, frankly, majorly congested, even during a pandemic. The area to get past Calvert down Connecticut's a problem. It's a big problem. There is really no shopping here. So for me, if you look at the parking issue, you look at the traffic issue, and then you look at this site, the word that comes to my mind is lost opportunity, right? So all the presentations were really kind of perfect views at parts of opportunities that could be for Woodley and could be for the ward in general. It could make that site walkable. It could make that site accessible to more retail. It could bring a grocery store, which is sorely missed in this area. It could bring jobs. It could bring more affordable housing. It could bring all of these things. And ultimately, I guess my question is, with something that is so integral to the neighborhood, such an opportunity, such a possibility for more things that maybe can give a lot to a lot of constituents who are looking for something. How does a process like this get like that, right? How does matter of right, kind of take this kind of form? Is there no community engagement? Did the community do something in the past that may have scared a developer off to engage the community in a different way? And is there anything we can do? Maybe we'll go through that. What can we do in the future to get a better engagement and to get community buy-in to things like this, to not demand, but to maybe suggest that we get a more balanced approach to things. And the last thing I would say is, the property that's neighbor to that, it has 2 units for sale right now. One is 5.75 million and the other one is 4.75 million. So, at minimum, affordable housing, and at minimum, a little bit more density is mandatory.
Thanks, Greg. And I think your point about, what was the lesson learned from the last fight that I started this conversation with back in 2016. I mean, I think this developer is learning the lessons of the last war and not sort of reading the room on what is possible today and what might be desired by the community, both in terms of not just total housing, but affordable housing and the other, walkability options. I think they've studied the 2016 battle so hard that they're just not engaged in, what's possible today. The composition of the ANC has changed. The city's priorities have changed. There's money to be spent to do these things. There's a planning process literally starting in like a couple of weeks. Hopefully a group like ours, when we end this thing tonight, we're gonna have a call to action to say, Carmel, wake up. There's people out here who's willing to fight for something that's better than what you got on the table. So that's what I hope happens.
And I guess that's my point, is that they can benefit from this process as well, right? They can develop it more. They can make more money. It could be something for them, but it can also elevate the neighborhood and frankly not really continue it down what I see is kind of a problem for commercial development here, and a problem for congestion, and a problem for affordable housing.
Thanks. Okay, is it Soraya?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Soraya. I live right next door, on the back end where the parking lot is. I used to rent my cars next door. I have a couple of concerns. Some of them have been echoed. So right now there's a lot of homeless people around. So that's one of the concerns I have in terms of when will construction activities start and things like that, and what can be done in terms of not just affordable housing, but I'm wondering if there's a possibility of having mixed use shelters, things like that. I know not too many people are interested, but it's becoming a huge issue in the city now. And it's something I think that we have to look at. In terms of parking now in this area, the congestion is awful. So I'm interested in having things that are more walkable, and that there is retail, especially grocery stores. I walk to most of the areas around here, but my major concern is affordable housing. I've been here for about 2 years, and I've been in the area for about 8. And I realized that if I want to own here, I can't own here. And I think that's a big issue that people need to look at. And I'm also concerned about, nothing has been talked about in terms of climate change and sustainability. This is a pretty large unit that they're planning to build. What's the sustainability? Are they going to be using solar energy? How are they going to make sure that there's not too many emissions? Those are some of the things that I haven't heard, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about. Thank you.
So I can take Soraya, the shot at the affordable housing piece. I think it's really important, and part of this is, I mean, I think as Glenn Kellogg said, when when somebody has a matter of right, the question is, how do you get them from the matter of right choice to the alternative? And I think it starts with this planning process of having the community says, hey, this is what we want. And again, I understand the retail's tough, but if you went through a planning process, is there a way to figure out the math on that? And the housing is part of that math as well. Because I think it does get to, this is a new day. The city, and I failed to mention this, the city is aggressive in wanting more affordable housing. The Rock Creek West area, there's an aggressive goal of getting around 2,000 units. And this would be this could be a spot to really take a number of those homes and have them right here. But it really, I think the planning process, and I think the city, from the staffing perspective, the housing folks are interested and would love to work with the developer, with getting the tax credits, getting the trust fund loans, working through the tax abatement program to try and get this particular development to have more affordable, more income restricted units that are a range of, again, from 30,000 to 80,000. Some of those you could, with rental assistance, they could go lower. But I think that would be the plan. And I guess in this conversation, again, I think the people at Carmel they know these programs, and they're smart enough to do these programs. But I think they've, as Bob said, and I think others know this as well, they've been around longer. There was a fight, 6 years ago, and so gets what's in it for this developer to stick their necks out and try and do something that's again beyond matter of right. And I think that's part of what we're trying to get to. On this, the notion of the people you have that are homeless, there is a street program. Miriam's Kitchen runs the outreach, and so I think we can try and put some information in the chat in terms of how we can get the message to the city agencies and nonprofits that are helping people that are homeless to try and try and help them if they can. Thanks for your question.
I would add on that. You mentioned sustainability. I don't know what exactly the developer is planning to build in terms of sustainability, but the fact is that DC requires very high levels of environmental sustainability in its buildings, just by code. But that said, virtually the greenest thing you can do is to build more at transit rather than less. The more you build at transit, the more people are out of their cars, the less carbon that's released. So just building transit-oriented development, period, is the most sustainable thing a city can do.
See two more hands raised. Chris, you, and then we'll go to Glenn, and then we'll talk to maybe some of the ANC commissioners who are here to talk about what we can do next steps. So Chris, go ahead.
Oh, hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
You can hear you.
Okay, great. So I think what's important here is that we want a livable, walkable community for not just those who can afford it. And I think we want a project here that really, really emphasizes affordable housing for families. And I'm seeing how some of the other options besides the current levels of zoning allows for more affordability. And I think that's important. And I think Meg McGuire's proposal with the CDC will help add to whatever required affordability. But I just want to point out that, as everybody has stated here, this is a fundamental parcel of property in Ward 3, a ward that, has been basically openly castigated by Mayor Bowser over the last couple of years as being segregated and exclusive. And the fact that the mayor, despite this opportunity, didn't step up to purchase this land for the city's needs. And we've heard a great level of need here. We've heard retail, commercial, and affordability. And under the current project, we're not getting that. And so the city has to be held, there has to be some accountability about that missed opportunity. We can call it a missed opportunity, but there was plenty of opportunities that were bypassed by the mayor to really take the reins over this huge parcel of land. And so now we're here. I know people who are still going to try to get this property through eminent domain. If we can spend $1 billion for a baseball stadium with eminent domain, 300 million for a soccer stadium with eminent domain, 80 million for basketball, 50 million for a jumbotron at Verizon Center, I think we could have spent $150 million for this parcel to get to all the things we heard tonight. And so it's more than a missed opportunity. It is a dereliction of duty for the city to step up on such a critical parcel of land. Anyway, let me just conclude that I think what we're hearing here tonight is things that everybody wants to see here, and it all requires planning, not just get this passed through HPRB and let's move forward. Like, let's really deal with this situation in a real way, not just on affordability issues, but basic logistics of utilities and transit scape and all of that. So I appreciate the conversation and look forward to hearing how we can act after the meeting.
Cool. Thank you, Chris. Glenn, and then we'll close off questions for now. And then, so Glenn, go ahead.
I just had a really quick follow-up on what Ron was saying about sustainability. Wanted to throw out there that really the best thing you can do for sustainability is build high density close to transit. I want to emphasize that again. In looking at sustainability, when you look at total US delivered energy, 25% of all of the energy the United States consumes goes into private automobiles. So everything we can do to put people closer together, closer to services, closer to metro, closer to jobs is the most sustainable thing we can do.
Awesome. Thank you, Glenn. So tomorrow night, Carmel's HPRB application goes before ANC 3C. Jason, are you here?
Hey, Bob, I'm here.
You're here. Awesome.
Yeah, I was
How do we lobby you?
I was lurking and listening in the shadows. I was going to actually raise my hand. I just wanted to first, Bob, thank you for hosting this forum. I think it was very informative. and thank everybody for coming out for it. But you guys are doing a great job of lobbying me. I can tell you that I agree with you 100% that Carmel is missing a huge opportunity in terms of the size of the redevelopment, and having retail, more density, and a much greater percentage of affordable units, at much lower MFIs, because they haven't committed to what type of affordable units or how many yet as well. But they do have matter of right. But as you said, their HPRB application will be presented before the ANC tomorrow night, and we'll have a resolution that will deal with that. But it's been a disappointment that I feel like decisions were made by Carmel, which they have the right to, but without any input from the community, ignoring the overtures by the city to financially get involved with the development at this point. Being adjacent or on top of a metro, it's just a big wasted opportunity in the city and the ward.
So Jason, we've got a bunch of people on the line here who hopefully most want to take some action. We can email you and your fellow commissioners at ANC 3C. Your resolution, is it to hold off on the HPRB process, or what is it?
To previous resolution, I'm introducing a resolution that's going to oppose their HPRB application and kind of steer them towards a PUD process. And we'll see how it goes and if it passes. But I'm just going to say, lobby Carmel, lobby the deputy mayor for development and economic development, John Felchicchio, at john@dc.gov. You can email him directly.
Is that all it is? John@dc.gov?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or john.felchicchio@dc.gov. You can email me as well. And the more people that reach out, and also Mary Chay's office, maybe we can create a groundswell. But I think even if it's symbolic, I think it's important to, make your voices heard. And just, doing some research on the resolution, JBG proposed, I think, like around 1,600 units when they were filing their PUD. I think it was 2016 or 2017 for their proposal for the site. And, it's just so disappointing just to see, 900 units, the bare minimum, when, housing is so scarce and we're trying to, make Ward 3 more equitable and more affordable.
Agreed. So reaching out to Carmel, I have the only name I have is their council, the former council member David Grasso, who is with Aaron Fox. Is that who we ping our emails to?
He's a representative, and I think he's the best person to reach out to. And he's very responsive. Okay.
And so John Felchicchio, let's get back to his email, because I'm going to copy all these and stick them in the chat for people to stick in their emails.
I put his email in the chat if you want to copy it from there.
I can do that as well.
Oh, Swale put his email in the chat. Okay, awesome. All right, so I'll throw these other ones in the chat since you can't copy from my screen. Okay.
And I also think, emailing Councilmember Chay directly, even though she's now a lame duck, I still think, she'll definitely be responsive.
Okay. Send David Grasso. Your meeting's tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow. And Swally, what time is it at? 7:30?
Yes, it's at 7:30 p.m. tomorrow.
That means tomorrow morning, if folks want to at least engage in this process, let the commissioners know, let the applicant, Carmel, know that we're looking for every opportunity for them to slow down. And I think the message is, we've got a planning process that's going to start literally in a few weeks. Let's take the time to get you, Carmel, more and that gives everybody more. It gives more affordable housing. It gives more opportunities for planning, potentially for retail, all of the things we've been talking about. But there's support out there if they would just pause and take into consideration what's going on.
Yeah, Bob, I was going to say, I think it's also important when you reach out to Carmel is that the community, we're not against, you know, more density or a big development, but we just want to be part of the process, and we're not going to be a roadblock. I think Carmel was really afraid of, you know, their project being held up in litigation or being burned through a PUD process. So I think, you know, if they see a new Woodley Park that's, you know, vibrant and engaged and pragmatic, I think that might be a good signal to them.
Okay. Any other is Heba here? Let's see here. Just didn't know if there was a member of Office of Planning who joined us and tell us more about the planning process that's coming up. Anyhow, keep an ear out for the planning process. I'm sure Office of Planning is going to announce something soon. It is going to involve this site. It's going to involve the commercial corridor at Woodley Park. It's going to include the commercial corridor in Cleveland Park. And so that's a design and development guidelines process that is going to start here in the next month or so. So you, what does David Grasso have to do with this project? Oh, yeah, I think he's a lawyer representing Carmel.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, Bob, just to sorry to interrupt, but the planning group is going to be on the ANC agenda tomorrow to go over the process and to preview that with everyone. So tune into the ANC 3C meeting. I put the link to register in the chat. Hopefully it doesn't still say 7 a.m. or 7:30 a.m. It's 7:30 p.m. But they will be there to preview that, and it will be hopefully at the front of the meeting, I believe. So there's that. Thank you.
Thanks, Janelle.
No problem.
Meg.
Yes. So we're also asking the Office of Planning to use ArcGIS tools for Ward 3 planning. It is no longer acceptable to use 20th century hand-drawn massing diagrams to convey, and it is essential that we have the best technology possible as we go into these planning processes. And that's ArcGIS Urban and ArcGIS City Engine. We should be modeling all of our zoning data. We should be able to interact and look at different scenarios. And we should all have a common visual language, which we do not. There's vast misunderstanding about a lot of these terms. And it's really inhibiting the planning process. So I will be testifying to this effect at the OP oversight hearing on Thursday.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Meg. Bill Rice. No? Okay. Anyone got anything else? Well, I want to thank everybody for their engagement, for showing up tonight, and good questions, good discussion. I want to thank folks on the panel, David and Ron and Meg, for their contribution here. And, let's start by sending emails for this process that's right in front of us. And again, I think it's important to let them know that we're here to fight for them if they want to do bolder things. So let's do bolder things. All right. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Bob.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.